So Spotum comes back. He's down in the chat and he says, "Oh man, well, you talking about people camming up? Then why doesn't AAS cam up?"
Spotum had a very good suggestion, because Alan said, "Oh, you don't show your face, I mean you have something to hide," and AAS has never shown her face.
That's where I'm going to start at today. Everybody who doesn't cam up is not out here in these YouTube streets creating all the chaos that a lot of people that don't cam up do create. You understand? So if you're out here on YouTube and you're partaking of what goes on, and you're not doxing people, okay, you're not making up blatant lies, you're not calling people's jobs and trying to end their livelihoods or anything like that, then whether you cam up or not is not an issue for me. It's not an issue. But for those that like to hide behind the mask all the time, simply because they're out here trying to start up some trouble all the time because they want to spread lies, that's a different story. AAS doesn't fall into that category. AAS was not saying the things that she said because she was trying to start trouble. She was defending herself. And for number two, the number one thing that gets looked over is, if I was threatened on YouTube, it would probably discourage me from camming up too. If somebody was threatening to do bodily, especially. If I was threatened on here, I probably wouldn't want to cam up either. If somebody took something so serious that they decided, if they took YouTube so serious that they decided that they needed to threaten me to stop me from what I was saying, then I may not be as eager to cam up as some other people. If I was on here and I was getting threatened or something like that, man, it might discourage me from camming up. And lest we forget, AAS has been getting threatened from the word go. This lady was making videos. Now I want to talk about how she came in and was doing her thing. AAS started out making videos, right? So there was really no need for her to cam up. She had some information that she wanted to put out about Umar, and she did that. And remember, there at that point in time, there were no panels. There was nobody was going live talking about the situation. She wasn't clout chasing or anything like that. All she wanted to do was disseminate the information. And that's what she did very effectively in those videos. It wasn't about her. She didn't have to get real personal with it. All she had to do was give you the data and make a video about it, and then everybody went on about their business. But then you got other people who decided to come in, and their critique of AAS was very personal. And these are the same people who laugh and joke about YouTube not being real, and you know, who they are on YouTube is not really who they are in real life. But the fact is, somebody was emotional and butthurt about videos that this lady was making. In order for you to come out and just start trashing a person, you had to be really in your feelings about that. A lady that was making videos, minding her business, and you make it your business to come out and deal with what she's talking about, right? You were in your emotions. You were butthurt about something. And that's why you did what you did. And everything that came after that was just the response to what one person was doing. But we have to remember, Umar Johnson was ready to get the pull-up team out here on AAS, you know, and a few other people, Reverend Gerald, Lyndon Honor. He wanted people to pull up. He wanted people to look for addresses and things like that. So I can't fault AAS for not camming up, especially when you got people putting out pictures that aren't her and different things like that. Umar Johnson was unscrupulous in what he was trying to do. So yeah, there's a couple of reasons for not camming up. One, if you're not doing anything malicious or anything with malicious intent, right, there's no need to cam up. And two, if you've been threatened already, then I can understand you wanting to keep your identity a secret. I get that.
Anti-Afro Svengalis. I don't know how much more clear and concise we can get. than what you just heard from Alan Logic, aka, what are you going to do about it? That's a good question. But I think it's time that I come right out and say exactly what people have been thinking. Not that I'm a mind reader, but people's actions, in some respect, can really shed light on their intent. And in this one area, I think it's undeniable. When it comes to the threats that we have been hearing, we have been subjected to, we have observed, there is one element of this whole situation with threatening people that the vast majority of people simply do not want to accept as fact. That fact is, there are people here that do want us dead. Yes, I said it. Do want us dead. Dead as in gone forever. You've left this earth. Your life has been taken away unlawfully through violence. When you take someone's life away through violence, you are exacting revenge. If someone else accomplishes a task, some people would consider that just as satisfying. Because that is the situation we have going on here. So why am I talking about this now? I've sat back for the whole time I've been on YouTube, just observing and seeing how people are taking to these various threats that have been leveled against me and several other people. And I'm going to try my hardest not to even bring up anyone else's name, because the subject is so incredibly disturbing. The fact that you can sit here and think, just sit here and think for a moment, you to yourself, about somebody wanting you actually dead. Now, I'm aware there are people out here who have been through experiences that were life-threatening through violence. Now, just because people don't come up and tell their whole life story doesn't mean these circumstances are limited to those who do speak about it. I know that we know that, but sometimes we have to put it out there. And in this particular space, can you blame people for not wanting to come out and disclose about their personal life history, like in the open? Because we have seen circumstances where others have taken that information and have used it to inflict further damage on people. But let's be clear, if you can really fathom a situation for yourself, and even if you can't fathom it for yourself, think about what you have heard, like in the news, because it's true. There are situations where people, they meet, we're talking about relationships at this point. They meet, they like each other, they fall in love, they're on top of the world. Then somewhere down the line, things start to unravel, things go sour, and one of the individuals ends up either killing the person themselves or hires somebody to do it. We know that happens. That happens with people who know each other very well. So what makes anyone think there would be any investment in these people who are threatening lives in your life to the point they would care whether you lived or died? More specifically, they would be satisfied if you left this earth. I'm always wondering, if you don't want someone to die, what is the point of you making a threat to take their life? What would be the point of you setting a situation up to represent that you were going to come and cause somebody harm? What is the purpose in paying people to engage in a process where somebody is searching you out, trying to find your location, trying to find your photo, in collaboration with making a threat? We're not talking about finding your photo because they want to know who you are because you have done something to them, like this whole situation that just happened with the latest person whose information was sent to the smoke. There was a quote unquote bounty of some sorts, And it was very clear that they wanted the photo because the person had been tormenting people about their looks. That was made very clear that somebody was looking for a photo. So someone out there, I guess, was just as fed up and sent the information. You never know. You're right, people. You never know who is watching. So let's get back to the death, the desired death of me and others. Umar Johnson made a statement. Umar Johnson stated, listen very carefully, he wished we didn't exist. Umar said that. What does that mean, people? We didn't exist. He wished we didn't exist. But we do exist. So how would we not exist? Our life would be taken away. Umar wouldn't care. Umar has made other threats. He has said about me, he wanted my mouth closed permanently. Now, what does that mean? Closed permanently. These are ways of people conveying exactly what they mean. They want you dead. They want you out of here. Then to take it further by passing around photos because they are desperately seeking someone to take up the charge and get busy with getting the person up out of here. They don't care that they're distributing a photo that isn't even of the person that they're after. They're hoping that someone would look at this, listen and say, yes, I'm sick of them doing this to Umar. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take responsibility for getting this person up out of here. He gives the addresses. He gives the location. He gives phone numbers. And he even states he's going to pull up on folks. He said he was going to pull up on me. He said he was going to F up other people. And again, I'm making specific point not to bring up anybody else's name because the macabre nature of this video, although it's just that, we have to come out and address it, people. It is a fact. And then you have other people who don't care about Umar Johnson one way or another. They are just attracted to his traits and they want to implement those traits in their own context, in their own domain. So they came up with their own scenarios and situations where they were threatening lives. Not only do they want to take your life or want somebody to accomplish the task, they are including your spouse, they're including your children, they're including your pets. And if you support any of these people that they want dead, they're going to come after them as well. We've seen all of this, people. Somebody threatening your life, initiating a threat of violence on your life means they want you dead. You don't make threats of violence idly for entertainment. These people show disdain. They show hatred. But here's the situation. How could it really be about you? It can't be about you in reality, but guess what? You suffer the consequences. We see this out here in the world. People end up killing someone else. They don't even know the person, or they barely know the person. That person represents something much larger than the immediate situation that involved them. And then again, you have the scenario that I talked about a second ago about people being in a relationship, whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, or even friendship. Somebody finds out something about somebody else and they have their own motives as far as wanting to get the person out of the way. We have seen this happen. So why does anybody think it's any less of a concern here in these YouTube streets? It should not be any less of a concern in these YouTube streets. And although the goal might be to get the person to stop talking, to get me to stop talking, to get other people to stop talking, yeah, that's part of it. But to never hear you again, do you think they would care if you were dead? Do you think they would care if I was dead? They wouldn't care. They'd be very satisfied because what we're doing has meaning to them that predated YouTube. How can you possibly have that amount of hatred and anger towards a person to the point you want their life taken? Really, it's running really, really, really deep, people. But let me also say something. Imagine this. Because I talked about it in another context with people who meet, get married, and somebody ends up killing the other. Very much a deliberate act. So that happens, and those people were close. They had children together. They had a home together. They built a life together, and one ends up killing the other. So think about this. Think about you forged a relationship. This is right here in these YouTube streets. See if you can relate to this. You forged a relationship with someone. And we're only going to talk about your feelings, right? From your perspective, you considered this person a friend, right? You believed, based on what the person said and did, said to you here in these YouTube streets and behind the scenes, you were led to believe. You had no reason to doubt over time that this person was a friend. Doesn't have to be a lover or anything like that. This was someone that you trusted. You built trust. It wasn't like an automatic thing. Because there are situations, let me sidetrack for a second. Someone did it. There was a research project about not just online dating, meeting people through online dating, personal ads, that sort of thing, non-traditional meetings. There used to be a big taboo about that, but they were doing this research and they were talking about situations where people met, like the first time they decided, you know what, we like each other, let's get married. And they ended up getting married. They were married for 22 years, 15 years, 16 years, 33 years. And the 33-year marriage was back in the day where it was really taboo to go to these ads and find a mate. There's been research behind this. So there is no shame with people meeting up on the internet, forging relationships. They end up being positive. But let me tell you this. Just imagine that is a scenario that you have in your mind. Remember, this is about how you look at it. You consider a person a friend. Then it comes to be a person doesn't agree with you, with what you say, or even something that you do. You didn't necessarily do something to them, right? Or you did something and you had good intentions and you know the person misinterpreted what happened. At any rate, at one point in time, if you can get your head around this, you considered the person a friend, and now that person wants you dead. Can you imagine that? Imagine that just for 1 second. And why am I saying that? Because such a person is demanding that you cam up after they are aware of the numerous threats that you have been subjected to. The threats of rape, sexual torture, it goes on and on. The person could have even been subjected to the same type of threats themselves. But they want you dead because what you have to say, what you're doing is simply not tolerable to them anymore. How would you know the person wants you dead? How do you know the person wouldn't mind if you were raped and sexually tortured? Because they leave messages under the people who are saying these things. How would you feel if you got a screenshot of someone who you thought was a friend and they are, thumbing up, giving a high five, or saying kudos to someone who threatened to rape you? What do you think about that? Do you think that person would give a damn if you lived or died? Or, more specifically, does the person care if you're dead? Something else you can ponder. Did the person leave that message there specifically because the person wanted you to see it? They knew you would see it. Did the person agree with what the individual was saying in the video about threats to rape? They agreed with that? They support that? They would want that to happen? Are they wanting you to suffer? Was that the reason why they left the message? And then if you ask a question on the other side, knowing a person has been through extreme violence themselves, what do you think that person would say or do if you were to leave a message under a comment or a video that somebody made mocking their circumstances. Do you think a person would be just fine with that, saying, you know what, this person left this message under this video where somebody is mocking what happened to me and I'm thumbing it up? Do you think the person would say, you know what, that person was a friend of mine once and they have a right to now feel that I should be dead? I don't think a person who leaves messages that are thumbing up your demise would take kindly if you did the same. And that is the issue. There is a double standard expected. The perpetrators of these types of actions in no way would ever accept you doing it to them. But they feel completely vindicated, comfortable, relieved, doing it to you. Is this a strange world or isn't it? But these are the things that happen. Somebody wants you to cam up. You thought they were a friend. They want you to cam up. And if you cam up, does that increase the risk or decrease the risk? Or decrease the risk to your health, welfare, and safety? What do you all think about that? These are the things that are happening out here in these YouTube streets. So let's take it a little bit further about people, even if they themselves have experienced life-threatening injury through violence. And like I stated before, don't assume it's just those who have spoken about this. There are plenty of people right here in these YouTube streets who have been through harrowing, horrendous, life-threatening, death at your doorstep experiences through violence. So imagine a person like that not giving a damn about whether or not you live or die, or more specifically, are cheering on the people that are saying this, or welcoming the people who are saying this into their chat and their live stream, and thumbing up and praising those who are threatening you. Can you imagine all of you being in a situation like that? You cannot impart reason into a situation like that. Now, what you can do is think about, what is the motivation behind this? What is the motivation behind someone who would engage in this type of behavior? There could be a couple of explanations. I'm just giving you scenarios that we typically see in this business. It is not unusual for someone who has suffered horrendous violence to replicate the violence on others. It is not unusual for people to want others to experience what they experienced, having gone through a life-threatening, violent situation. And when you talk about, let's talk about sexual assault, that sort of thing, rape, sexual assault, sex crimes, male or female victims, if they have experienced this in their lifetime, and the response to the victimization was shame, blame, rejection, their responses to other people having experienced this or being threatened with the same type of violence is often cold, calculating, and indifferent. And you see these reactions to people. They don't care. I mean, people threatening to rape and torture and do all these things. No, I don't care. I was going through the same thing and nobody believed me. It's not even on their conscious specter. They may not even realize that's what's happening. And I always wonder, when you hear about these situations where women have been sexually assaulted, you often hear other women being at the forefront of condemning the victim. And I always wonder in my head, I wonder what went down, because if a person had experienced something like this, and it's not saying that they had to have experienced something like this. I'm not saying that. Say you had absolutely no experience with this in your life. You could just have an opinion about whether the woman is telling the truth or what the situation is. But if you had an experience where you weren't believed, you were shut down, you were told you're no good, you deserved it, even if you were 10 years old, right? And a 40-year-old man raped you, you shouldn't have been coming on to the man. Come on, we've heard people saying these things. She was fast, right? Even you hear young males, 8 years old. You remember Chris Brown? I'm saying this because Chris Brown actually came out and said this. So obviously I'm not telling you any secrets of Chris Brown. I don't know Chris Brown. I have to say that. He was on, oh, it was horrible. He was saying, yeah, I got some at 8 years old. I almost just died. He was saying this. That's sexual abuse, people. At 8 years old, he was saying as an adult, bragging, and I put bragging in quotations, about, quote, getting some at 8. Come on, are you not going to sit here and tell me at 8 years old, he was enjoying a sex act with adult female? He said she was a babysitter. I think she was in her 30s. No way. You're never going to convince me of that. But that is what he said as an adult. You don't think that could have had some impact on him and how he treats women? I'm not psychoanalyzing. I said could. I'm not even going to go there. By the way, do you know that Chris Brown, when he was going through his probation term, he actually physically attacked his own mother and damaged her vehicle when she came to visit him at one of these, one of the rehab places. Do you think that was the first time he's ever done that? I'm just putting the question out there. I can't answer one way or the other, but he attacked her, physically attacked her and damaged her car. Whatever the reason, I can't say, but he did that and made the news. That's what he did. People want to think reactions to things happen just on the spur of the moment. No, it's always history behind it. What the history is, I can't tell you because I didn't research Chris Brown. I know what happened with that incident because it was widely reported. And I'm going, my God, you can't tell me this is the first time he's done something like that. Based on her reaction, again, I doubt it. I can't say for sure, but no one would convince me of that. That's the first time and only time he attacked his mother physically. I just do not believe it. So another response to violence that people might have is that you avoid anything that reminds you of a violent encounter. Now, that could be a healthy response. That could be a response that is causing some issues in your life. I mean, you can completely shut yourself out. That way you will never have contact with anybody. It's like a healthy balance to that. If you are taking care of yourself and you are scanning your situation, you're looking at a perspective, and then you make a decision to avoid something that reminds you of a very unpleasant experience in your life. How can that be unhealthy? That's not unhealthy. It would be more unhealthy if you gravitate towards individuals who remind you of the violent episodes in your life where you had absolutely no control over a situation, but then you continue to subject yourself to people who have those same traits. Just floating over there. It's like a magnet. And people who have these abusive tendencies are very, very skilled at picking up these little nuances in people who quite possibly have experienced that in their life. So there they go. They gun for you. They target you. And then they reel you in. And then now you're in a situation that you found yourself in again, time and time and time again. And again, this is not gender specific. This can happen to either gender, male, female, doesn't matter. If you experience these situations in your life and you've made no progress towards reconciling reality versus what you had control over, because if you don't have control over it, you don't have control over it. But that should not be something that guilts you in continuing to allow people to control you with their threats, with their manipulation, with their devaluing, with their degrading. And you hear people doing that, and they don't seem to understand why certain people don't take to that. The people who don't take to that are the people who have either not had this ever in their lives, and as adults, because we're all adults here, right? They don't see any reason or purpose to start at age, whatever, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever, to allow people to start controlling them. It could be individuals have experienced stuff like this in their life, and they've made relative reconciliation between what they had no control over and what they were able to extricate themselves from, because they found a way to assume control of their life. We don't know. I'm not asking anybody to make any confessions. All I'm saying, there are people out there who are serious, extremely serious about wanting your life to end. And you need to take precautions accordingly. It doesn't mean you should shut your life down. It doesn't mean you should end social media, but it does mean you will be wise to take these people with the utmost seriousness when they make threats on your life. Be sure you connect with local law enforcement. You make the report to the FBI. Don't ever take a threat to your life lightly. More so if you have children that you're responsible for, whether you are taking care of them, whether they're your own. If someone threatens your life, they're threatening the life of all minors in your care who frequent your house. There are some people who just don't give a damn, and you better know it, people. They don't care. You decide how you're going to roll with that, but you can't force anyone else to accept someone else's abuse. You have a right to decide for yourself if you're going to accept it or not. And those who refuse to accept abuse, far too often in these YouTube spaces, are considered the villains. And the effort is made for those who are perpetrating these evil deeds as victims. No, fight against that. Demand proof how somebody is trying to classify you as a villain, and they are hijacking your character by trying to consider themselves the victim. Fight long, hard, and strong against that sentiment for your own dignity. If 20 people listening don't agree with you, who gives a damn? The fact is that you stated it and you made it known and you believe it. You know whether or not you were the survivor / victim or you were the villain. You shouldn't have any doubt in your mind about that. So that's your existence that you should wear. To hell with what anybody else thinks, people. You know, I have so much more to come. In the meantime, you know the drill. Buyer beware.